Hello and welcome to today's episode of Connections, Coffee, and Confidence with me, Janice. Growing up, we didn't do amazing and fancy holidays. Except for that one time, there was a big thing at my dad's work, and he ended up with a ton of credit card points. Those points paid for us to go to a hotel room. One room for the 5 of us. But it was next to the pool. Okay, the pool was bat central, but whatever. We thought it was the best thing ever. And it was the first time we got to see Mr. Bean, because we were in New Brunswick, Canada's only bilingual province. And the only TV channel we got was French CBC. Mr. Bean, if you're not familiar, has no talking in it, so it was perfect. Proof you don't need the perfect holiday to make family memories. But that is not my point. I tell you this because now I'm going to tell you a story about this time I went to Spain. And I don't want you to think I don't still, to this day, a good 20 years later, recognize the extreme privilege of international travel. I'm going back to when I lived in Ireland, which is a story for another day, but where it's quite common to pop on a Ryanair flight and jump over to Spain for your holiday. But this one was a special trip, because my now husband and I were going to Spain to meet one of my brothers and his then girlfriend. They'd saved up all their money to do a big backpacking Europe thing, and they were headed to Spain. My husband's family have a villa there, so we were going to go stay in the villa, spend some time together with my brother and his then partner. And it was really exciting because I hadn't seen him for a year or two at that time, and I missed him. So one day we decided to go exploring, up into the mountains. It was gorgeous, as Spain tends to be. And we found ourselves driving through this little tiny village. No idea what it was called. And we didn't know then either. We had no idea how we got there. We were literally just driving to see the sights. It was old. It was high up with views to take your breath away. Especially me, as I'm afraid of heights. There were olive and almond trees everywhere. It was a far cry from where I grew up in Canada. It was just beautiful. But like all things, it needed to end, and we had to go home. Except there were very few road signs. But still, shouldn't be too hard, right? As we drove around, we noticed that the stunning vista we were loving was really similar to the one we had just seen a few minutes earlier. And pretty soon we realized we were actually seeing the same scenery, on repeat. We asked ourselves, how many roads can there be to get out of this little village? Like, we really stumbled into this hidden gem of a community. Shouldn't be too hard to stumble our way back out, right? Well, turns out there were loads of little side roads off the main road. None of the directional signs made any sense to us, and the main road just seemed to do a loop around the village. Okay, so what in the world does this have to do with your business? I'll pull it together for you after the intro. Hi, I'm Janice Fogarty, and I'm a communications strategist and consultant. The Connections, Coffee, Confidence podcast is for professional women entrepreneurs who have established themselves and their business, and they're ready to get serious about using the power of communication to surpass their business goals. On this podcast, I discuss everything from leadership to establishing a business vision to the intricacies of creating messaging, publicity, and more. I speak to women who excel in communications in their business, whatever they do, and get an inside look at how they created a thriving livelihood. So top up your mug and welcome to this week's episode. Now, before I close the Spanish Mountain Top driving loop for you, I want to have a quick word about the masterclass I just released. If you're interested in learning more about how to use social media to grow your business as a tool to effectively reach your business goals, if you need a better strategy than only to batch create when the stars align and your hair is amazing, but you're scrambling for things to say, if you've been trying to use social media for your business but just aren't seeing the results you want, I have something for you. I've created a half-hour masterclass where I teach you my method for creating strategic messaging and using it in my clients' social media to move them towards their business goals. I include my 4 foundations for each post, and I walk you through a real Facebook post, breaking it down so you can see each element in action. The strategy works for all platforms and businesses, and you finish it not only knowing my exact method, but also with 30 strategic post topics designed by you to push your business forward. There's more information on my website at janisfogarty.com, and of course, I'll link to it in the show notes. Okay, Spain. We were very reluctant to try any of these side roads to, who knows where. None of them were looking any more prominent than the others because logically, wouldn't you expect a road to a larger town or a highway to be bigger or somehow special? Fortunately, we weren't the only ones seeing the same thing on repeat. A very old gentleman noticed that we had driven past him a few times already. On the next pass, he was in his truck and ready for us. He tooted his horn and waved for us to follow him. So we did. And he drove us down the same road and a few minutes later pulled over to the right side of the road while indicating left. Then he hopped out and started waving and pointing for us to go left, which turned out to be the road back to where we needed to be to get on the highway to get home. Bless his heart. And sometimes we reach this place in our business where we're driving around and thinking that everything is fine until we realize it's not. Until we realize our problem, our challenge. And in business, when we're following the same path all of the time, it often means we're missing what else is happening. Sometimes following the path also means that it's harder for us to get off that beaten track, even if we have someone waving us off in a different direction. Lots of us changed direction when COVID hit, to some degree or another. Some of us went crazy bananas and took this as a chance to do something so different to our norm. And some of us just kind of tweaked what we were doing already or slowed way down while we tried to retain some sort of security. But the world is still changing, and things probably are never going back to the way they were. So the changes or tweaks that you made as a temporary measure, they may now look like not enough. They were fine for the interim, but time is moving on and you gotta ask, will they stand the test of time? This is the moment when we really need to start paying attention, gathering information and clues to what might be happening, what new changes might be coming down the road, and how we can deal with them, how they might impact or even improve our business. We don't want to be like the board of Blockbuster and have the CEO tell us we should move into a subscription model only to dismiss the idea. The joys of being small is that we can continue to make changes as we see fit. The trick is paying attention and remaining open to the information presented. But where do we pay attention? Who will be our guru now? And how can we trust any one guru? I have 5 suggestions for us to use to gather reliable information to digest. 5 ideas of places to go and gather our clues, starting with some basic snooping. First port of call is to look at the competitors. Very few of us are doing something unique, so odds are there's someone else you can look at. You might even know your competition, and this is where you put your relationship skills to use and ask to meet to discuss. Not only is it so helpful to network with someone who just gets what you do, but it's also helpful to see if someone else's experiences and practices match your own. With any luck, they're trying something different, and you can gauge from each other which is the way forward, or even adapt the method even further. But you can also do the step remove snooping and check out their online presence. Maybe they offer a different package, use different language, whatever. And you can have a think about whether they're just targeting a different client, and that's totally cool, but are they targeting a different client because they know something you don't? Are they targeting mid-sized companies because the smaller businesses don't have the funds to pay for your service, for example? And look, a word of caution, don't get caught up in the they're doing something different, it must be better, oh my god, I suck trap. Don't do it. Maybe something safer to do is to look at a similar business in the same industry or sector. So if you're a family lawyer, a professional, you look at other professionals, be it a real estate law practice or an accountancy firm. If they're somewhat comparable, have a look at how they're operating. Are they moving to operate online? Are they scaling back their services, niching more? And why do you think that might be? And is it applicable to your business? If you're a hairdresser, check and see what the personal trainers or the nail techs are doing. You want to look for a comparable type of business that has been successful, is growing steadily, and is known for being progressive. What are they doing? And can you do it too? Another method that doesn't require you to leave your chair is to check online research and data resources. There are companies out there whose entire business model is to watch trends, to gather the data and analyze it. Many will create sector or industry-specific forecasts based on that data, which you can then use to base your decisions on. Now, full reports are usually for purchase, but sometimes they're free, or the excerpt will give you enough of a clue as to whether you want to purchase or even just to give you an overview, a feel for how things are predicted to go. Try your professional association if you belong to one, or check companies like Bloomberg for these reports. Google it and see what comes up. You don't know which PhD or master's candidate just published their comprehensive review on exactly what you're looking to learn. Honestly, I've been surprised a few times exactly that way. Speaking of professional organizations and networking, what about networking with your professional organization or with community business leaders? You want to find a room, physical or otherwise, where you are not the smartest person, where people have different experiences, different paths, and glean what you can from them. Try Quora or Reddit. Look at blogs, podcasts, or the social feeds of industry influencers or thought leaders. Places where the chit-chat's happening. You're listening for, and maybe even asking about things they've been doing differently, processes they've been changing, things that haven't been working or seem not to be working like they used to. And if the idea of talking to lots of people is a bit overwhelming, try a mentor. Many business associations offer a mentoring program, and often your local government-led business centers, they do as well. You can even just approach someone you've admired and ask. And it should be a safe ask for you too, because it's a flattering thing for most people to be considered mentor material. What you're looking for is the opportunity to pick the brains of someone who has been there, done that, and maybe even seen some of the current trends that she knows are just that. A trend. She, or he, might be able to tell you things that remain constant in business, what used to work that is coming back into favor, or even see that you are, in fact, knocking it out of the park, and be who you need to remind you to celebrate your accomplishments. I had asked earlier, who will be your guru? And I just want to take a moment and suggest that your mentor not be a guru. You need someone who can balance you out, push you forward, answer your questions. They're not the be-all, end-all when it comes to information, because one person's experiences are just that, one person's experience. So, a mentor, not a guru. And you know what source might be the easiest to tap for information? Your current client base. The people you've already worked with in the past or are working with right now. Have a think about what people have been coming to you with, or what they've been talking to you about as you've engaged with them. Have a few people been mentioning the same things or asking the same questions? Or just ask them what's changing in their lives and how you can help make it easier. Have you noticed that maybe one of your services just isn't really getting much uptake over the last few months? Maybe it's time to reevaluate based on current trends, or just ask a trusted customer, someone you really thought would benefit from that service or product, why they didn't purchase. Now, obviously, you frame it as a help to you and not scolding for not buying your clearly amazing thing, but ask, because the information, it's probably good. And if it involves something that you can control or work with, then you know what you got to do. But here's the thing. You're the boss of your business. You are smart enough to get where you are. You're smart enough to know to keep scanning the environment for opportunities and threats. So you're smart enough to take the information you've gathered from your sources and evaluate it. To take the time, step back and mull it over. To watch for the signs of change, and if you don't understand the signs you see, to look for someone who's willing to help. Not everyone is as lucky as we were to have someone notice you're lost and wave you in the right direction out of the good of their heart. Sometimes you just have to ask. Which reminds me of another trip to Spain with my husband, where we ended up in a different travel-related challenge that ended up with us climbing and jumping off an 8 or 9 foot fence into a dusty alley while a busload of passengers yelled to ask where we were going. But that's another story for another time. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd love you to bits and pieces if you could please leave a review on iTunes. And if you don't do Apple, you can leave a review on Podchaser. I'll leave the links in the show notes. Thank you for that. And until next week, my friends, thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening this week. I invite you to sign up for my email list or join me in the Connections Coffee and Confidence community on Facebook. Those are the people who get first dibs on any classes or products I create, and they benefit from the extras I can't get into in a podcast format. I also lovingly request that if you've enjoyed this podcast, you leave a review on Apple. When I see a new review, I get so excited I almost spill my cappuccino froth. Almost. And if you're a woman entrepreneur who's ready to get serious about using the power of communications to grow your business, send me an email at janice@janicefogarty.com. All my details are in the show notes. Thank you again for listening today, and I'll chat with you again next week.